Let's go down to Kokomo.
Day 36. Friday, the 20th of November. Costa Maya, Mexico. Oh my goodness, what a day yesterday! We were awoken at some ungodly hour by an early morning cabin inspection. These are held weekly and involve someone banging on the door, marching in, turning the light on, and then checking that everything in the room is shipshape. Today we were marked down and yelled at for having no shower curtain. In my sleep-deprived state, I tried to explain that it had certainly not been a voluntary decision to flood the bathroom hourly for the last 24 hours, but our forgetful cabin steward, Robin from the Philippines, had removed ours when cleaning and not replaced it. We'd called housekeeping twice trying to track down another one, but to no avail. Upon leaving, the inspector left the light on. For freestyle's sake, we're night shift. Poor Andrea had only been in bed less than 1 hour or so. I then had to climb down from my top bunk, turn the wretched thing off, and then haul myself back into bed to try and get a bit more shut-eye. Couldn't really get back to sleep, so got up, had my third shower with no curtain, but still didn't master not drenching the floor, walls and ceiling, and trotted along in my casino uniform to La Cucina for the crew luncheon thingy. I'd read the minutes from the previous monthly meeting, and it seemed straightforward enough. Each department sent one member of staff to put forward any suggestions, grievances, comments, queries or requests. Last month, our casino rep hadn't spoken up with any recommendations or improvements, so I'd already asked my colleagues if they had any concerns that they'd like me to raise. The washing machines in the 3 laundrettes and crew gym equipment were 2 items that apparently appear without fail each gathering. But they also had a question regarding the status of the crew smoking area on deck 14. Was it allowed or not, as there were no ashtrays? And why were we given a party with free alcohol and then a chunk of people breathalyzed the next day? It was viewed by some as a bit of a setup after the introduction of the very strict 0.04 on duty and 0.05 off duty drinking rules. There are no warnings anymore. Blow over and you're going straight home at the next port. No exceptions. Armed with my ammo ready for question time, I entered the room and tried to find my seat at the long dining table. An array of exotic names adorned the place settings, but I couldn't seem to locate my own. Ronnie, the training specialist from the Philippines, then kindly pointed out my short 3-letter title at the very head of the table, seated right next to the captain. Were they kidding? Was this some kind of setup? Of all the gin joints in all the towns, in all the world, and I had landed on the space right next to the big man himself. Sweet Jeremiah, I'd better bring out my best table manners and remember not to swear. Once we were all seated and the boat driver had taken his place next to me, we all set about tucking in into the sumptuous buffet that had been put on for us. I was delighted to find out that there was sushi on offer, plus chopsticks and real plates. What a bonus! I helped myself to a large portion of salmon and a big chunk of undisclosed meat also. I returned to the table and poured myself a glass of water, waiting for everyone else to be seated, and prepared even to say grace if required. Apparently that wasn't necessary, and everyone else just dove straight in. I didn't need asking twice, so dunked a large piece of sushi into the soy sauce and gobbled it down. As I attempted to bathe my second slice of raw fish and rice into the dark liquid, I spotted a large slither of uncooked tuna that had obviously slid off from my first California roll. I quickly tried to grab it from the pristine white tablecloth before anyone else saw, but the slippery thing kept squidging between my fingers and refused to be parted from its resting place. I then jabbed at it with the chopsticks, swirling it round a few times before finally achieving liftoff and managing to hide the offending item inside my mouth. A large black stain remained as evidence of my uncouthness. I moved my plate to try and bury it out of sight, keeping my head down, hoping that no one would notice my clumsy ways. Nice first impression to make with Captain Tio. Every time I took another piece of sushi into my mouth, there seemed to be a photograph being taken by the representative from the photography department. Hopefully, at some point, I'll be able to get hold of some evidence of my date with the most important man on the ship to post here at a later time. Doubtless the picture will involve me shoveling a mouthful of food into my face, but the fact that all 22 people present came in uniform should make it entertaining enough, as it resembled a really comical fancy-dress dinner party, with a chef, a security guard, and at least 3 Captain Birdsize in attendance. During lunch, the feedback session began, and I felt all 22 other pairs of eyes looking at me for most of it, as I munched away trying and failing to discreetly pull all the small salmon bones out of my mouth. Thankfully, I'd finished eating by the time my turn came to take the floor, and after thanking everyone for being so nice to me since my arrival, I launched into my 2 points regarding both smoking and drinking. The captain's first response was to inquire if I myself smoke or drank. Denying that I did either seemed to raise more suspicion than if I'd falsely admitted to either habit. Oh well, at least I can report the answers to my friends in the casino at today's in-house meeting after the weekly lifeboat drill. For what it's worth, cruise smoking is permitted near the helipad on 14, and ashtrays will now be provided. And the breathalyzer dictative came directly from shoreside, who had no idea about the previous night's antics, so it was just bad timing, not a sly attempt to catch people out. The only downside of the dinner was the fancy desserts on offer. I decided not to partake, and managed to arrive at the staff mess before it closed, to bag myself some deep red berry jelly for pudding instead. I might bring up the lack of a wobbly sweet at next month's get-together. When I finished work in the early hours, the resident hairdresser still had his "Call Me" sign on display in its usual place, in the stairwell landing next to the corridor that leads to my room. Feeling that my hair was getting long and a bit unkempt from all the sea salt it gets subjected to daily, I called Roldan, or Poggy, meaning handsome in Filipino, as he calls himself. Now Poggy isn't one of the scissor operatives from the luxurious passenger spa, but rather the engine motor repairman. I've watched him cutting hair most nights on my way to and from my cabin during breaks from the casino, and although he does a good job, there seems to be a distinct lack of variety in styles offered, with the result normally being the same, very short all-over look. I'd also never seen him attempt any female clients, but I of course didn't let that put me off letting him loose on my long locks. He wrapped me up in a piece of plastic to save my uniform from getting covered in any trimmings, and set to work on what turned out not just to be a tidy-up, but an actual complete restyle. My hair is, or should I say was, long and all one length, and completely straight all the way round the bottom. With a bit of input from my passing neighbour Peter, who is also a dealer, Poggy chose to attempt an ambitious look with a V-style cut, including some kind of layers made with thinning scissors. The ship didn't really help matters, as it tilted from side to side frequently, actually resulting in making me queasy at one stage. It was either that or the noise of my hair crunching in the not-so-sharp-sounding scissors, together with the sight of blonde chunks landing in my lap, that made me feel vaguely unwell. I was kind of relieved that there was no mirror to be able to witness the carnage that was taking place all around my head, and I sat as still as possible until Roldan had completed his masterpiece. He certainly had no fears about removing plenty of length, and it definitely felt a lot shorter when I ran my hands through it. I paid him the standard $10 and bid him good night. I hurried to my cabin to reveal my new look to my cabin mates and see for myself the cost of the damage. I'm not going to post any photos of the completed product just yet, but let's just say it looks fine when it's tied up. Hey, it's only hair and will grow back, right? It's actually not that bad, considering I left my fate in the hands of a machinery repair guy for $10 at 2 o'clock in the morning in a windowless stairwell on a moving vessel. Today, we're in Costa Maya, Mexico. I was going to venture out for a swim, but after standing on deck this morning for nearly an hour, trussed up in a life jacket in the sweltering heat, followed by an hour-long casino briefing, I think I may go back to bed for 30 minutes after lunch instead, as I start at 3 p.m. tonight and at 8:20 a.m. tomorrow. Good night all, over and out. And that's all for day 36. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in for day 37's antics tomorrow. Same time, same place. Well, not literally, because this ship never stops. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a day. And if you're enjoying it, like and share it too. Thank you!